Welcome to my garden, GinGee GoodEarth programs. Your host, Gretchen Schmitt, and I am reading the Universal History of the United States of America, embracing the whole period from the earliest discoveries down to the present time. Written 1830, and it's written by C.B. Taylor, New York Publishing, by Ezra Strong. So we just finished off, we're on part Roman numeral 6. We just finished part 1, and now we're on Roman numeral 6, part 2. And I want to start with the great thought of the day. Enjoy the picture slideshow. This is written by Frank Lloyd Wright. I know the price of success, dedication, hard work, and an unremitting devotion to the things you want to see happen. All great masters are chiefly distinguished by the power of adding a second, a third, and perhaps a fourth step in a continuous line. Many a man had taken the first step. With every additional step, you enhance immensely the value of your first. Truth is so rare that it is delightful to tell it. Emily Dickinson. So we're going to start on page 46. And we'll back up a little bit. Okay. So, and then at the end of this program, we're going to read Ike's Farewell to Churchill, January 30th, 1965. So, without further ado, we'll zoom in on the picture show. This success was a matter of joy, not only as it was a check upon the enemy, but it was an evidence of the fidelity of the Uncas and his Indians, of which the English had been before in doubt. And again, before we start, I want to apologize for my grammar and my signature voice, because I'm not doing a dress rehearsal. This is it. Once I do the reading, I'm not editing, and I apologize for any mispronunciation of words or the sound effects. And I just want to get through the book. It's over 600 pages long, and it's antiquated. The pages are stained, and it's a leather-bound book. And again, I want to go ahead and start with some background music. And I'm learning as I'm reading this book for the first time. And just like yesterday, I saw there was a Mr. Cotton in our administration of the United States of America, and there's also a Mr. Cotton in this book. And I don't know if it was Captain Cotton, but I'll have to reread that and look over. And there's a lot of new terminology and grammar. And here's the landing of the Plymouth, December 22nd, 1620. The first settlement in New England states commenced by John Carver and about 20 others from Plymouth, England, and here's a picture of that. So I hope it kind of focuses, and you can see, and then the top picture's actual building structures from the book, and that's a print from the book. And again, sometimes when I'm filming, again, I'm new at this type of filming and being my own camera gal, but I'll go to different parks and do readings, and I'll film it, and it's, you know, the great bird sounds in the afternoon. I record, and have a great day, and let's get started. I'm starting on page 45. Uncas and his men insisted upon executing him according to the manner of their ancestors, and the English, in the circumstances in which they then were, did not judge it prudent to interpose. And I did read that at the last book. It's very, very barbaric wartime with, you know, enemies and the different forts and the different nations of people that had to endure all this. But so I'm going to start. I don't want to read that brutality of war again. So I'm starting on page 46. So we're going to move ahead. He was fixed in this opinion, because that, expecting the army of Pequot Harbor, they kept watch upon the river night and day. Their number of men greatly exceeded his. He was informed at Saybrook that they had 16 firearms with powder and shot. The harbor was compassed with rocks and thickets, affording the enemy every advantage. They were upon the land and exceedingly light-footed. He was therefore of the opinion that they would render it very difficult and dangerous to land, and that he might sustain such loss as would discourage his men, and frustrated the design of the expedition. If they should make good their landing, he was sure that while they directed their march through the country to the enemy forts, they would waylay the attack them with their whole force at every difficult pass. Besides, if they should find on trail that they were not able to defeat the English, they would run off to swamps and fastnesses, where they could not be found, and they should not be able to effect anything capital against them. He was not without hopes that by going to Narragansett he might surprise them. There was also some prospect that Narragansett would join him in the expedition, and that he might fall in with some part of the troops from Massachusetts. His officers and men in general were for attending their instructions and going at all hazards directly to the forts. The necessity of their affairs at home. Fort necessity. The danger of the Indians attacking their families and settlements in their absence made them wish at once to dispatch the business on which they had been sent. They did not relish a long march through the wilderness. They also imagined that they might be discovered, and even should they determine to march from Narragansett to the attack of the enemy in the division of opinions, Mr. Stone was desired by the officers most importantly to pray for them, that their way might be directed, and that notwithstanding the present embarrassment, the enterprise might be crowned with success. Mr. Stone spent most of the Thursday night in prayer, and the next morning visited Captain Mason, assured him that he had done as he was desired, adding that he was entirely satisfied with his plan. The council was again called, and upon a full review of all the reasons, unanimously agreed to proceed to Narragansett. It was also determined that 20 men should be sent back to Connecticut to strengthen the infant settlements, while the rest of the troops were employed in service against the enemy, and that Captain Underhill, with 19 men from the garrison at Saybrook Fort, should supply their places. On Friday, May 19th, the captain sailed from Narragansett Bay and arrived on Saturday at the desired port. On Monday, Captain Mason and Captain Underhill marched with a guard to the plantation of Canonicus and acquainted him with the design of their coming. A messenger immediately dispatched to Maiantonomo, the chief sachem of Narragansett, to acquaint him also with the expedition. The next day, Maiantonomo met them, with his chief counselors and warriors, consisted of about 200 men. Captain Mason certified him that the occasion of his coming with armed men into his country was to avenge the intolerable injuries with the Pequots. Let's hold it right there. I got to check on something. I had to check on the downloading of my Roman numeral 6 part 1. Those are the chemtrails that I found in my hometown, and there's the airplane that releases those chemtrails, so that is a real thing. But 10 years ago, if people said, oh, we have chemtrails, they're trying to pollute the skies with a poison to poison the people on Earth, I would never believe it. I would not believe it. But now I do. And it's because my father was a world traveler. He taught farmers all over the world how to farm in Mexico and Japan. And he also was a pilot. And in Mexico, he used to fly over washing machines and dryers so that the wives of their families could, wash their clothes with the washing machine. And anywho, I spent a lot of time at the Pittsburgh airport saying goodbye to my father on his farming expeditions. And I have visited mostly every farm in the state of Pennsylvania and New York because my dad he worked for Bachman and Oyster, and he sold the farming silos and built them and helped farmers farm. And then he also did a lot of research studies on different farmlands. And so he was very involved as a Navy Seabee too, on helping community and neighborhoods. And I also, had lived near the Parris Island Marine Corps Air Station. And so when I lived on Fripp Island, I could see all the F-18s and cargo ships and all their practice drills. So I have a lot of experience in looking up in the sky. And I was a observatory astronomer, hobbyist. And I did see this International Space Station flyover. And so I'm looking up there. So I know that's wrong. What is that? Why are who owns those airplanes that are giving off poisonous emissions into our skies that harm the people and the animals and the wildlife. And because of the COVID-19, we had the pandemic was announced on March 11th. We've had beautiful, just beautiful air quality and beautiful blue skies in the Pittsburgh region. And so therefore, yep, there is something very malice going on up there in the sky with chemtrails. And I finally got the picture, my own photograph of one of those airplanes that are releasing exhaust emissions of poisons into our air. So it is a real thing. Okay, so let's get back to the book. And this is, remembering that my program is all about entertainment, education, artistic, and it's like a variety show. So I'm just not going to steadfast read throughout the whole book. I want to be entertaining also. This is very new for me. Okay, so I have to look and see where did I leave off. Okay, so the next day, the Mia non Tahameha met them with his chief, counselors and warriors consisting of about 200 men. Captain Mason certified him that the occasion of his coming with the armed men into his country was to avenge the intolerable injuries which the Pequots, his as well as their enemies, had done the English, and that he desired a free passage to the Pequot forts. After a solemn consultation in the Indian manner, Mia non Tamihama answered that he highly approved of the expedition, and that he would send men. He observed, however, that the English were not sufficient in number to fight with the enemy. He said the Pequots were great captains, skilled in war, and rather slighted the English. You have to excuse me, I need to get a sip of tea. I have a lot of pictures of farms. I just love farm animals. There's a Pennsylvania deer. And that's Joe Pye weed. And I have a musical, it's called Joe Pye Music Festival in honor of Joe Pye weed, which was named for and after an Indian Yarb man, an herbalist, Joe Pye. And so they named it has medicinal purposes, and they named the weed after first American Joe Pye. There's a water wheel. Okay, everyone should have a water wheel at the end of their neighborhood. And water is a symbol of energy and life, and we should have filled